All right, welcome everybody to the Advanced Academics Program Screening and Identification, really focusing on the Level 4 AAP services. We'll be going over all the nuts and bolts for that. So just bear with me. Normally I would say pop in, raise your hand if you have a question, but the way this is framed, I'll have about 10 to 12 slides, kind of an overview, and then there'll be a lot of like rhetorical questions that will be answered, which might be the questions you have. Once I get through the presentation, if those questions haven't answered what specific question you might have, then it would be a great time to ask the question. Our MC, aka Miss Prindo, the principal, is monitoring the chat, and she will pop in as my emergency help here in case I can't answer a question. So we got the dynamic duo giving this presentation today. So let's start. So some of the topics we're going to be talking about, like I said, some of the program goals, talking about the continuum of services. We really focused on that a couple of weeks ago. If you want to really learn about the whole overview of services, you can go to our Wakefield Forest AAP section, and we already have the recording from a couple weeks ago. The different pathways for AAP, what Wakefield Forest's role in the AAP screening process, how parents can contribute to the process, and kind of like the reason why the process is the way it is, and how communication will be disseminated to applicants. So Fairfax County's beliefs, right? You normally see these in a lot of presentations. All students deserve an excellent education. I think we all can agree upon that. This is a big one. Students learn best when everybody's working together, right? Educators, parents, and students. We can get the best high expectations for the students. We also recognize that all students need opportunities to continue to work on their strengths and to pursue their interests. And Fairfax County has an AAP continuum of services that provides different ways or avenues for students to kind of meet their needs at where they are at the current time. And we all know that students continue to progress, sometimes daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. And so the great thing about FCPS is that there's a lot of different avenues, as it says, multiple pathways that we can address the needs of individual students. So the two goals of the AAP program are the following. One is pretty much talent development, and two is differentiating to meet the needs of advanced learners. So we'll go over both of these. So let's start with talent development. So what does it look like in FCPS? Right, it's creating instructional opportunities through our curriculum and strategies to kind of get the best out of individual students. It works with them to explore their areas of interest, right? Great teachers are really good at finding the students' interest. That's kind of the way to hook to capture them into the materials. And then also focusing on underrepresented groups through the Young Scholars model. The second piece is differentiating the needs of advanced learners, right? In this part, you see in the level 4 curriculum, you see materials that go beyond grade level standards. You see this more in math initially. There's also access to differentiated curriculum and the environment, which is what it does is it increases the depth and the complexity and also the pacing for those students to be able to access their full potential. What it also does is it creates a peer group for students so that they can kind of learn with each other as well as with the teacher. And as a former AAP teacher, I can tell you, I found great reward on watching students be able to learn from each other different ways to attack a problem, different approaches, different perspectives. There was a lot of room for growth. And then being able to provide some supports in academic advising through the Young Scholars model, which the Young Scholars model, we're not going to focus heavily on it today, but it does go from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. It creates that advising model, and it keeps an eye on young scholars. So what services are available during a student's K-12 time in FCPS? This following slide right here is what we really focused on a couple of weeks ago. So if you really want to look at the individual pieces here, I would, like I said earlier, I would suggest going back to our website and watching the recording from a couple of weeks ago. We really focused on each piece of this, especially the elementary, and just lightly touched on the middle and high school for obvious reasons. So here's kind of that rhetorical questions. So what are full-time level 4 AAP services, right? So it's differentiated instruction in all the 4 contents, right? And with a similar peer group and similar academic needs, right? So typically in grade 3, you'll see a lot more complexity and differentiation in language arts, science, and social studies. In math, they will start going above grade level. As they move up into 4th grade, they will definitely be doing above grade level math, right? And the frequency and intensity of the differentiation and acceleration will increase as the grade levels go up. So how can a student be considered for full-time AAP placement? So there's different pathways to the screening process. So as a family, if you feel like the level 4 services is the right fit for your child, you can submit a packet, which starts with a family referral. We'll go into this in more detail. A staff member, if they feel there's a need for a student, should be in a level 4 classroom, they can initiate a referral. And then there's a universal screener referral where certain criteria will automatically flag a student to kind of look at them a little more deeper. So that packet will be automatically created unless a parent or guardian decides they don't want to pursue that. But all of them, those different pathways, can result in full-time services. There's no advantage to going one route or the other. So how does it work, right? So I mentioned that you can submit a referral form that kind of kicks off the process, and it lets our teachers know that they really need to start gathering information. It's a pretty complex process for us when a packet's being held, and we'll talk about some of the pieces for it. The slide initially said all you need is like a referral form and parent questionnaires optional, as well as work samples. I like to stress that really the referral form and parent questionnaire really should be mandatory, because it only makes sense if you feel your child should be in a level 4 services. It would make sense that you'd want to put as much information in for the central committee to make the most informed decision. And sometimes it's a great pieces of data to look at the performance in school as well as the performance from at home, and to get 2 different perspectives. So I would suggest, if you are involved in this process, to submit the referral and parent questionnaire. When you get a copy of this presentation, these are hyperlinked, so you can go right to the AAP website, or you can just go to fcps.edu and search AAP forms and search parent questionnaire. All this information needs to be in by December 15th, right? This is, like we said, this is the information that kicks off the process. Anything after December 15th, the county is very strict on this. They are going to tell you you're going to have to wait till the following year. So I would highly recommend, again, if this is the avenue you pursue, try to get it in well before December 15th. They will not do any exceptions, weather related or anything like that. So please make it if you're going to do this, make it a situation where we don't have to make hard decisions, because the hard decision is really not going to be in your favor, because they will deny a package anything after December 15th. I've been doing this over 10 years, and I've seen several requests denied when they're past the due date. And it's always hard to have to tell the parent that. Okay, there is, like I said earlier, there is an avenue, the universal screener, where there is kind of a formula. They haven't really tell us what the formula is, but if a student kind of fits in this universal screener formula, then they will automatically start the process, and then parents will be notified of this process. I will say one of the things I have noticed over all the years of being an advanced academics resource teacher, usually when this avenue is accessed by a parent, this, for some reason, parents have a tendency to not submit the parent questionnaire and the work samples. And again, there's no, like I said earlier, a couple slides earlier, there's no advantage from one side over the other. And I've seen several parents, despite trying to get them to access to submit more information, be denied in this avenue. So I would really highly recommend, if your child is selected for this, then make sure to go through the same regular avenue and submit the maximum amount that you can submit on your side. So what do we do as a school to prepare for the screening files for each student? We have a local school committee, which usually encompasses our principal, our assistant principal, the teacher, myself, and sometimes we get another specialist that will be in the room. We look at all the packages, and our sole job is to make sure, well, not sole job, there's a number of things. We want to make sure that we submitted all of the correct information and that we've shown your child's best version of themselves. Everything is only positive, and so we try to find where the strengths are in each of your children, and we try to submit that, so when it goes to the county, the county can make a decision based off of the strength of the packet that we put together. Again, we make no decisions on this. That's our job, is just to prepare this packet and make sure that it again shows the best version of your child. So what's in this package that I'm referring to? So there's usually a screen and summary sheet, which is kind of an overview of all of the information in the packet. There is a new version of the gifted behavior rating scale. They kind of moved away. It's called HOPE. If you go on Fairfax County's website, you can learn more about that. You can even get a copy of it right in where the AAP forms are. So you could take a look at that. We submit progress reports for last 1 1/4 year. So last year's report cards, as well as the first quarter for this year. We also have a test data sheet that has all of the testing data that's gone in with Fairfax County schools, and then work samples. On our side, we submit 4 samples to show your child's strength in various topics, various subjects, and it could be up to 6. And so you'll see it says up to 6 because there is 2 pages set aside for parents. So again, so that HOPE committee form, you as a parent do not have to fill that out, even though it's on the Fairfax County website. That is something that the teacher, generally in most cases, the teacher is the one that will fill out the HOPE scale, since they're with your child the most. So they'll complete that. And in the HOPE thing, it focuses on academic as well as social areas, and it's comparing to students of similar age, background, and experience. So here's your piece. How can you contribute information for full-time AAP? So you can give input. Like I said, it definitely helps because it gives a different perspective, and there's several ways you can support this process. Again, the referral form is one. Usually if you haven't seen a referral form by now, the top half of it basically gives all of like the background information, the demographics, contact information, who to contact with emails, phone numbers, and then the bottom half asks the question, basically to the effect is, why should your child be in the AAP program, right? And so that's a question. And my suggestion to you is, there's a box there for half a page. I would really try to be very succinct and focus on the major points of why your child should be looked at for level 4, right? And I would even say put it in bullet point if you can. The committee looks at 6,000 to 7,000 files every year, so they are going to look for information that's easily accessible. So we all know bullet forms and succinct information is probably going to capture the committee's attention more than a really long information on your child. Your parent questionnaire will kind of dive deeper into different pieces of information that will help your referral form. So I would even look at the parent questionnaire first and then go back to the referral form and then kind of frame the two together. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then, as I said, it is really helpful to submit the forms, even if you're in the universal screener pathway. So families, like I said earlier, you can submit up to 2 pages of student work samples. And the key here is 2 pages, not 2 work samples. A perfect example here is like, actually, this is not a perfect example, but an example would be if you had your child wrote a story that maybe has great vocabulary in it, has a great storyline or moral to it, and it's got like 4 or 5 pages of just great information. Your task is, rather than submit the whole 4 to 5 pages, and you can't really shrink them down to make them fit in 2 pages, is to kind of glean the important pieces of your child's writing. And so what's very helpful for the committee is if you kind of highlight certain pieces, like here's page 2 of the story where my child is really showing advanced vocabulary highlighted, and here's a great intro line that catches the reader's attention, or notice how my child has really captured the moral of the story through the following sentence. Information like that with a quick little description in the corner would definitely be helpful for the committee. Here's another example. This is vehicles of the future. One of the great things is detail, right? If you notice in this picture, this tree recovery truck, you can notice the amount of information that's being submitted just by a simple picture and the descriptions there, right? You got irrigation hole, a water line. On the right, you have an urgent fire response unit. You notice the NAT, the water tanks, exhaust system. You can see that they really thought about all the different pieces to be successful in these vehicles of the future. So again, 2 pages maximum. It's single-sided, 8.5 by 11. That's what you have to think about. Unfortunately, there's no 3D video or audio samples. So if your child is really good with maybe coding or something like that, what we usually do is have you take a snapshot of some of the coding and again put a description on there. If they did a performance, you have to somehow encapsulate that into a document, and again tell like why this is being submitted, right? And it has to be readable, as it says here. They really want 1 page of work on a single work sample, no like minimizing 4 or 5, like I said earlier in the story example. Also keep in mind that anything that you submit will not be returned to you. And the big thing now, since COVID, we are accepting electronic work samples. Actually, I would really encourage you to send PDFs and JPEGs, because I end up having to put everything in electronically anyway. So if you send me a paper copy, I just go to the copying machine and I turn it into a scanned document. So if you're worried about sending a paper copy, I would I would just send an electronic version, and then I will usually submit. I will let you know via email that I received your information. All right, so one of the things that we've seen in the past is we've seen a lot of art samples, which is great, but as the slide says, this is an academic program, so we're really looking for examples of math, science, social studies, language arts, right? Multiple content areas. If they're connected together, it's even better. Now, if an art sample is kind of capsulated into one of those, then that's a different story. Like the truck, the vehicles of the future was not just an art piece. It was an example of using art to create descriptions, right? Using pictures to, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So, and really what we're looking for exceptional critical and creative thinking, reasoning, and problem solving, right, in your students' work. Well, I usually like to tell parents it's application of information, right? A multiplication test, while a student gets 100, that just shows memory of multiplication. Now, if you can use that multiplication in a way where you're applying the information, where you're creating a garden and you have to figure out what is the area that's needed for your garden using multiplication and using arrays and stuff like that, then that would show a deeper knowledge of multiplication. And usually we're looking for hows and whys, anything that will explain deeper. This is the parent guardian questionnaire that I was referring to earlier. You'll notice it asks a couple questions, 5 questions. My child surprises me with their knowledge. So you rate them based off of your observation, occasionally, frequently, and consistently. And then you write a short little piece to give evidence of that. Evidence is kind of the key here, right? This document, I will tell you, you can find it online. It's a PDF. You can start filling it out, but once you go past that gray area, it will not show up on the documentation well. So this is another example of being very succinct, and they do not want you add an extra page or two, except for one exception, whether you have a special learning need, then they give you another page to explain that. But really, again, try to be succinct and just focus on the major points that you want to get across regarding your child's ability, right? So you got knowledge base, their imagination and unusual way of doing things, their curiosity and the way they ask thoughtful questions, finding humor in situation or events. You usually find out children that are sarcastic. One of the kind of neat things, people say they're sarcastic, but sarcasm is really a version of witty use of language. So somebody understands how to use language to make a sarcastic comment. It wouldn't be a sarcastic comment if you didn't really understand the language of it. So sometimes you'll see situations. So that's why this question kind of comes up with the humor situations. That's not usual for their age. And then the ability to focus on a topic for a long time. And like I said, they'll give you extra space for if you have a special learning need. Okay, so what role does ability testing play in the holistic screening process? This is one we get a lot, right? So best practices basically show that packets or identification is best if we don't look at one data point in particular, but that we look at a holistic review of all of the data points and look at them to the best of our ability. If you look at college admissions now, most of them are going in this holistic approach now. And so all of the information that's submitted are weighted equally in the eyes of the people looking at the packets for identification. What part does ability testing play in the screening process? Again, it's one of the pieces of data that they look at, but they showed identification is not successful if you just look at tested data alone. So it's weighted equally with the other ones, as I said earlier. How do students get ability test scores? So if a student is in Fairfax County in grade 1, they are typically given the Naglieri nonverbal ability test. And then in grade 2, they're given the COGAT, which is the cognitive ability test. Grade 2 just went through testing this past week. And Fairfax County only requires one of these ability tests to be on file. So let's say you just came into the county in grade 2, even though you only have just a COGAT test, Fairfax County is not required to go back and give your child the Naglieri test. So you as a parent can get additional testing for your child if you want. Our partner is George Mason University. Their state license, and if you get tested through them, then you're not required to submit any license numbers. But if the testing is not done at George Mason through a private psychologist, then you have to get their license number as well. And so this is a big thing. And then if you're interested in getting additional testing, I would not wait till later for this, because it does take a while to get the testing done and get your information back. Okay, so what happens to screening portfolio once it goes through the central committee, right? So now we put everything together. We've gotten your information, our information. We looked at it, our screen committee map, it looks like it's good to go. We sent it off to the central committee. What happens when it's there, right? So the screening process will, it'll say in the slide or two that several eyes are going to look at it, but again, they're looking at to see the strengths of your child here. And you're allowed to get a copy of the package after we have submitted the central selection review, right? So this is just helpful for us to do a I guess unbiased preparation of the packet. So once it goes, like I said, once it goes to the committee, then you can request one, you can reach out to me, you can get a copy of it, and then we can go from there, right? So who decides if the student is eligible for full-time services? Again, it's going to be the central screening committee. They are looking for evidence that your child needs to be placed in this level 4 environment, right? There's no one person makes an eligibility decision. That's a really big piece there. Each file is read independently by at least 6 committee members. So it goes through a whole process where the committee members look at each packet individually. There's not even any discussion on the packets in between, but there's a certain process. When they get to a certain number, they can look to see what the other committee members rated the file. And then based off the rating of the file, they make a decision whether it continues to be looked at or whether there's enough in one way or the other to identify the file in one, either eligible or ineligible. So what is the most important document in the screening process? There's no really one answer. All of them, all the materials are considered equally, right? That hopefully that has come through in multiple slides as we continue to say this. That's a holistic approach. And so the committee really wants to see strength in all the different data points. That would definitely be viewed advantageously in the committee, right? So usually if one's higher than the other, then that's when some tough decisions have to be made. How will I know if my student is eligible for full-time placement? Okay, so they will have a timeline. I will once you send out the stuff in December, once you give me all your information, we're creating it. When I usually let you know I have the information to start the process, I will also put in my email, like, now the hard part for you is done. Now the hard part begins. You have to sit and wait while we do our part, and then I will let you know typically when they will let you know what the ineligible or eligible decision is. They will send the information directly to you, and then there'll be an avenue for you to appeal if that's the situation. Spring screening begins full-time AP service beginning in the next school year, right? So fall screening has already happened. The deadline is passed for that, and that's only new students enrolled in that. But spring screening is anybody that's been in Fairfax County more than a year, right? So that's the December 15th window. By the time we get to the whole screening process, it will be almost the end of the school year, and then if your child's found eligible, they would just begin the next school year with the level 4 services. Even if your child's not initially identified, your appeal process will come during the school year, and the notification you'll be notified before the school year ends, which is a change over the last couple of years. It used to happen over the summer, which made it a little bit more challenging. And like I said, here's the parent notification, right? This is on your referral form, who to send it to, right? Here's another really big piece that parents sometimes have a hard time understanding, is that there are no individual reports about why a student is ineligible. I can usually, after you get your decision, I can give you my, I guess, educated guess on why a student may have been found ineligible, and like what are the pieces that might need to improve moving forward. But the committee will usually just give an eligibility or ineligibility decision. What does an ineligible decision mean? Basically means the committee felt the student had a broad academic peer group and a match to the AP curriculum, access and school-based opportunities. So what that means is, like, they found that a better match may be to attend level 3 services or level 2 services, right? Again, that was in our last presentation from a couple weeks ago. So that is information that we look at. Even if a student's found ineligible, we have our own screening. If we have our own screening cycle in our school at the end of the school year, and then we look at to see if a student was ineligible, is a level 3 service right for them? Is a level 2 service right for them? Is the academic peer group where they're at, should they just stay in that situation? We'll have a committee that will make that decision, right? But again, there's multiple pathways to meet advanced learning needs. We are getting close to a lot of the questions, if you're wondering. Are ineligibility decisions final, right? They are not final. The initial one, like I said, there's an appeal process, and every year you can be reconsidered for a level 4. So let's say, unfortunately, your child was ineligible, you appealed, and they were still ineligible. The following cycles, come December of 2024, if you felt like your child is now ready for full-time AAP services, you could go through the whole process again. It's something you as a parent can do every year up until grade 7. And then, like I said, every spring, we as a school also will screen for school-based services. Some schools will ask you to submit like a level 3 form, a level 2 form, but we look at every child in every grade level when we look at our spring screening. So it's not necessary to fill out a form. As it says it in the paper, we will look at it. So who can answer questions about the AP screening process? This is kind of my major roles, to be the advanced academics resource teacher. Like I said, I've been doing this for over 10 years. So I probably can be your initial resource for answering questions. Usually if I can't answer a question, I will either ask Miss Prindle or Miss Williams, or I will go to central office and find the answer for you. I am excited to announce that we do now have AARTs in middle schools, and we do have a new middle school resource teacher that we are working with in our pyramid to kind of do some vertical alignments with that, so that when a student gets up in the middle school, they are aware of their AAP services and more background on them. And then obviously you can go to the website, or they call it contact AAP office. I will say, like anything, the AAP office I would use in the situation if you're just not getting answers from myself or anybody else that I mentioned earlier. Let us be your first avenue down in the trenches. We probably have the best overview of your child, since we're right there. The AAP office, probably 9 out of 10 times, is they're just going to turn you right back to us and say, have you talked to the ART at your school? So I would say that would be a situation you use if you're really not getting any answers, or if we're not being responsive. But I would say historically that has not been the case. And I made it to the end, so I'll keep it on this slide. If Ms. Prindle, I haven't really been looking at the chat. As you can tell, I've been talking. So if there's any questions we need to address that you haven't addressed personally in the chat, now would be the time. And also now would be the time you could raise your hands and ask questions if I didn't address anything.
Mr. Gray, there was a question whether or not a private evaluation would count as one of the sources from the family.
That used to be in the past, yes, but they have taken that away now. So that is not acceptable under the new packet requirements, I guess, new packet requirements. And if you probably had a child that went through the process a couple of years ago, you were allowed to add that information, but they've taken away recommendations, they've taken away awards and stuff. So that would have fell under that recommendation piece, which they no longer have. I think this is what, year 2 or year 3 that we've taken away those two pieces, or not we, the central AAP has.
So Mrs. Rusk asked, do you prefer if they submit everything together, or would you rather kind of have the parent forum as soon as possible and wait on the work samples?
I would say the referral form, that is kind of like the magic button to start the process with the teachers. That's the one that says, hey, we're submitting something, that's the official document. Then I usually will respond to you immediately, and then I CC the teacher so they know that that student is going through the process, and they can begin collecting information on their side. Like I said, it's a very intensive process, so the earlier we can get information, the better. So referral form, definitely. They don't all have to be together. If you have it already, I would submit it. But if you're still gathering work samples and stuff, send what you have. I will put it in a folder and hold on to it. And then, like I said, I will respond to you. So if I don't respond to you, just send me a reminder, because I want to make sure it doesn't get lost in the email cycle.
So Mr. Kutcher asked about work samples. Right now, most of the teachers are probably holding on to a lot as you guys are coming up to conferences. So there'll probably be a lot of work samples there. What I would say is the teachers are also asked to collect what they see as the students' best work samples. So, I'd encourage you to look for, it could be work samples from last year, or it could be samples of things that are done at home independently.
Yeah, and I would also add to that you do not need to go to the teachers and say, oh, you're required to get 4 work samples. Can you send them to me so I can send them to Mr. Gray? I will work on that side, coordinate with the teachers. They all know like the process, except for some of the newer ones, but I will inform them of the process. So you do not have to gather any information. You send that referral to me. I take care of the teacher and everything, so you don't need to really let them know that they're going through the process and that you need to gather information. They will take care of all that piece for you.
The question from Mrs. DeGood, how will we know if our kiddo hit the universal screener? I am a little worried about the screener timeline based on the fact that the COGAT was delayed, which was not a Fairfax County or a Wakefield Forest issue. It was an issue with the actual company that provides the assessment. So I am a little concerned about what that timeline would be. I think, my recommendation, when families come to me is if you think that your child should participate in the full-time level 4 classroom, then I would not wait for a test score. I would not wait to be screened. I would complete the paperwork myself. Because I, often get that question. Well, I want to know. You do have the Naglieri assessment already if your kiddo was here in first grade that you can look at as one measure. And then you're looking at, the committee is going to be looking at the IQ testing, but they're also going to be looking at, what is performance in the classroom look like? What is the teacher, rating them on that hope scale? What is the feedback from the parents? So they're going to be looking at all of those components. So I would really be thinking about, does your kiddo hit on those components? And if you think yes, then I would complete a packet.
Where can we get a copy of the presentation? So I we will post that on the Zoom on the website, and if I stop sharing right now for a second, I could probably make a quick PDF of it and submit it in the chat if you stick around for 2 minutes. If you ask Ms. Prindle 2 more minutes of questions, I can probably get it to you right now in 2 minutes.
Mr. Gray, there's a question about how the Hope Forum is different. I know that the Hope Forum has more research behind it, and they were looking to make it a little less subjective. I don't know what else you would add to that, Mr. Gray.
Yeah, they basically found that there was no data to make that the gifted behavior rating scale I'm trying to think of what's the right word that they use for it. From a data standpoint, it wasn't, I can't think of the word right now.
Was it research based?
Yeah, it wasn't research based. So what they did was they hired somebody to look at all of these different research based performance, I don't know, what would you call them? Performance identifiers. And so there was several of them that they looked at, and they kept narrowing them down based off of different requirements that Fairfax County had. And they found that the Hope one kind of hit all of the pieces. And one of the things that it does hit on, it doesn't just hit on the academic components, it also hits on the social components, which we know there's a big connection with the social piece of being successful in academics, right? You could be very academic, but if you don't have that social connection to it, it's researchers have found that it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be successful moving forward. So there's that big social piece that's been added to it. No,
Sorry.
Oh, there's a file right there. I was going to say, I don't think I can add a PDF, but I might be able to.
There's a question too about the guest process. So each year after students go through of the level 4 or full-time placement process, families have the option to choose to either attend Wakefield Forest or to go to the site at Canterbury Woods. Based on the number of students who are found eligible, if there are spaces in the class, we look at the students who are level 3 eligible, and we use the data points that are used for the level 4 screening. And we screen those kiddos for placement in that classroom. So it does change every year. There are students, who are in the class, a couple times without being found eligible. And then there are kiddos who, it ends up not being a good fit. On the information that I send every year, I do tell families that it's a kind of a 1-year placement. So as the years progress, there are fewer spaces in the classroom because more students become level 4 eligible. Yes, our level 4 classrooms are the same class size as the general education classrooms. I do not get any additional staffing for the level 4 program.
It doesn't like me trying to submit something over here.
No, Zoom doesn't like PDFs.
Okay.
We'll get the Zoom transferred over to a YouTube that we can post on the website, along with the documentation that we reviewed, and that will be in the news you choose, and it'll be posted on our school website.
And you could also email me too, and I could also send you a copy of it. I think I did see another question for you about class sizes. Where did it go? Is the level 4 classroom size about the same in terms of number of students? Excuse me. That might be one you could probably answer.
The majority of the time, they're the same size. I did have 1 year where I had 30 kiddos who were level 4 eligible, and they all stayed. And the other classes were a little bit smaller, but the goal is for them to be aligned with the other classes at the grade level. All right, well, if there are not any more questions, we will work to transition this into a YouTube that we can post. And if you have any questions about the process, you are Mr. Gray is your first point of contact. And we look forward to seeing you guys soon as we get ready for our big move.